Welcome to the Produce Moms podcast, where we believe there is a produce mom in all of us. I'm Lori Taylor, founder and CEO of the Produce Moms. For 10 years, I sold fresh produce to over 300 grocery stores in the U.S. And today, my team and I are fully focused on inspiring people to eat more fruits and vegetables. This show is just one of the ways that we hope to inspire you and your family to eat more produce and live a better life. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, join our community of almost 40,000 in all 50 states and over 30 countries by visiting theproducemoms.com/subscribe. And be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks for being here. Enjoy today's show. Welcome back, everyone. Today, it's another great edition here at the Produce Moms podcast. We've brought someone that truly has a long-standing presence and really a great role in terms of registered dietitians and nutrition outreach for people of all ages, but specifically families. So our guest today is Liz Weiss. She is a registered dietitian. She is the founder of Liz's Healthy Table, which includes all sorts of great resources for us, busy parents and moms. She's got incredible blog content. She has a podcast. She has, these amazing coloring books that promote fruits and vegetables for children, recipe books, all sorts of stuff. So today we're going to dive into all the work that Liz does, but, stay tuned because this episode is actually going to tackle a topic we have not discussed yet on the Produce Moms podcast. And I am so excited to welcome Liz today. Liz, thank you for being part of today's show.
It is so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. So before we get started on this incredible topic that I know I'm not the only family that's battling in my home, I definitely want to, just get a little bit more background on you and help our listeners understand the kind of thought leader and nationally recognized dietitian that we have on the show today. So, Liz, I've had opportunity to evaluate, your work as I prepare for today's show. And to be honest with you, it is, I'm so impressed. I mean, from the company you keep to 20 plus years of doing this to the type of resources that you are publishing and putting out there for folks like me and all of our listeners, it's incredible. So please tell our listeners today about your journey and why you founded Liz's Healthy Table.
Okay, well, it's sort of a long journey, but I will give you the Reader's Digest because otherwise you're going to be here all day. So, I'm a registered dietitian and I worked clinically as dietitians really should do because that gives you a good foundation in terms of moving forth in your career. And I always loved this concept of educating the masses. And so back in the day, I'm like, you know what? I got to go get a degree in nutrition and communications. I went to Boston University. I got to get this degree because I really want to educate a lot of people and I want to do it through television. And back then, no dietitians really, were working in TV. This is like back in the mid 80s. And so, long story short, I ended up getting this job at CNN as a producer and then ultimately a reporter covering food and nutrition 5 days a week. And we had a show called On the Menu. And this is before, Lori, the Food Network. Okay, so we were like myself and another dietitian, Carolyn O'Neill, kind of like the first to the game.
The OG.
And then got it. And then, I did that for a couple of years. It was a really cool job. I traveled the country. I got to meet cool dietitians doing cool things, cool chefs doing cool things in nutrition. And then I moved to Boston and then started doing lots more in the world of media, but ultimately landed on my feet doing a blog and social media and founding an online platform called Meal Makeover Moms. And Meal Makeover Moms was really one of the first blogs, and we had a podcast as well, one of the first blogs and podcasts by dietitians. And I was partnered up with another mom dietitian named Janice Bessix. And so the two of us had this Meal Makeover Moms platform. We wrote cookbooks. We built this cool community of moms, mostly moms, some dads online. And we heard from so many parents over the years about their struggles at mealtime and the kinds of recipes they wanted and the kinds of tips they wanted. And because it's, the world of social media, it became this really great sharing community. And so that was so much fun. And I did that till literally 2 years ago. And then Janice moved on and retired from that space. And then I didn't want to leave that space because I love families and nutrition. And so I founded Liz's Healthy Table, really with this idea of creating a space where we can continue this adventure of feeding our kids a healthy diet. And so it's all about fun. It's all about exploration, about new ideas, and always with that premise that we're going to share with each other. And when we share, it's like it's endless, right? It's just the world is our oyster. And there is a lot out there content-wise. And so it gives people a nice space to hang out and learn and get ideas from each other.
Yes. And to piggyback that, when I visited your website, I thought, wow, I'm not alone. So yes, you are definitely leveraging community in your content creation. So let's go ahead and dive into this topic, y'all, that I have said we at the Produce Moms podcast have really not discussed, and really not even at theproducemoms.com have we dove into this. And that is the concept of picky eaters. Okay, so I know I'm not the only person out there who's living in a household with a picky eater. And Liz, when I visited your website, I was immediately drawn to that section. I mean, it is a big part of what you do at Liz's Healthy Table. It's one of your primary topics for the blog. And, the biggest picky eater in my home is actually my husband. But now that we're both adults, he joins me in my interest in making sure that our children don't grow up to be picky eaters. If my children grow up to be like my husband, the world's going to be a better place. However, I don't want my children to grow up to be like my husband, and that if someone serves him a taco, he can't eat it. That's not okay, especially as so much in life, whether it's personal, how we connect with other folks, or if it's business, how, goodness, we advance our mission and goals professionally. A lot of times that's centric to food. Dining experiences are part of life. And for me, that's why I was immediately drawn to the work you're doing and wanting to get you on this podcast to really explore the topic of picky eaters, because in my household, the pickiest eater here is an adult. It's a man who's almost 40 years old. And he and I both are working hard to make sure our kids aren't that same way. And so why is that concept of picky eaters a passion point for you? And what have you learned through your research or 20 plus years of work and experience in this field about picky eaters?
Well, I will first say that you're not alone when it comes to having a picky eater husband in the family. I hear from moms all the time about this.
Yeah.
And so rest assured, there are other people out there dealing with the same thing you are. And it is really frustrating. I get that. And, it really could be, and my sister, by the way, my older sister, I hope she's not going to tune into this because she'll be mad at me, but she's a picky eater. And I think a lot of it is just genetic. It's kind of how you're hardwired. And so, I'm glad, though, that he's excited to get your kids experiencing and experimenting with new foods. But picky eating is normal, whether it be your husband or for kids, especially. Picky eater, quote unquote, is a normal thing. And it probably is, from the caveman days. I mean, if you think about it, you can't just eat every little thing in your path, because then we wouldn't be, a species that survived. And so we're sort of hardwired to be a little bit picky and to be cautious. So that's okay. So let's normalize it. But, it's interesting because I did this survey. This is back in 2009. And I surveyed the Meal Makeover Mom community back then. We got 600 responses. And what we found was that picky eating was the number one obstacle to getting kids to eat a healthy diet. It wasn't lack of time. It wasn't budget, which of course do all play into this, but it was really picky eating. And so parents were really struggling with it. And so picky eating is normal, yes, but it's important to kind of nip it early because it can turn into kind of a slippery slope otherwise. So once you know it's normal, then you really need the strategies to say, okay, it's normal. It's not going to bring us down. We're going to work through it. I have 2 boys. One is now 24. One is almost 21. And luckily, neither was quote unquote picky. And they did, any little finicky things they had kind of in their diet, they outgrew it. So that's the light at the end of the tunnel. Most people outgrow it, especially, I know you've got 2 boys, kids become teenagers, they're hungry, they go off to college. It's like survival, baby. I'll eat whatever is put in front of me because I got to eat. And so they tend to become less picky. But yeah, it's a frustrating thing when you have a picky eater at home. So hopefully we can go through some of my top strategies and, give people some relief from the all too common reality.
Yes. No, let's dive into strategies. So a question that we get all the time at the Produce Moms, and I know you get it too. And then I also, because of the work that, I do and the work that you do, I'm sure you get it all the time in your personal life too. You're watching your son's baseball game and someone sits down next to you and the magic question often is, so how can I get my kid to eat more vegetables? And so
sure.
let's answer that one, because it seems to be like the common thread amongst all of us is we all know that our children need to eat more fresh produce, specifically vegetables. The data's there as well, whether it's real like Nielsen data or CDC data, or if it's, just anecdotal data that from, being the head of household. Like, kids do not eat enough fresh produce and they really don't eat enough vegetables. So let's start there with your action-oriented tips.
Sure.
How can we get our kids to eat more vegetables, Liz?
All right. So number 1, and this is to stop in your mind labeling your kids as picky, because this is a really interesting thing I'm going to share. Quite often I'll be talking to moms, or maybe you're talking to a friend on the playground, and they'll say, my child's picky. So I'll immediately say, well, what fruits and veggies does your kids like, or do your kids like? And they'll say, not many, carrots, green beans, berries, watermelon, and grapes. And I'll say, wow, what an awesome start. So hearing that is like, phew, my child is eating some produce. So you want to, of course, expand upon it. So number 1, really the first big tip is to cook with your kids, to get your kids involved in cooking. I don't know a child on this planet who does not love an art project or does not love Legos. They're so creative, right? So cooking is no different. So think of cooking like an art project and get your kids into the kitchen with you. Take them to the supermarket, plan meals with them, but especially cook with them, because the more they're involved, the more excited they're going to be about trying new foods. Now, I've been working with this program in Lexington, Massachusetts, where I live, for many years. It's called Kids Cooking Green, and it kind of sprung out of our local farmers market. And the goal is really like your goal, Lori, to get kids to eat more produce, especially local produce. And so we do a lot of cooking classes with kids. And when I come in to talk about nutrition, I always do these smoothie making contests where we lay out kind of a market basket on a table. We put out berries and some bananas and yogurt and some 100% juice. We always put out something green like mint, cucumber, little baby spinach leaves. And then we let the kids loose. We create these little teams and they create their own smoothies with the one rule that you have to add something green, which invariably is like a little mint leaf, but hey, they're going for it. And so, although one week I was doing a class and this little girl was adding tons of mint and cucumber, I felt like I was in a spa. So the kids are making these smoothies, and I'd say 95% of them will try those smoothies. Every now and then you have a hesitant kid, but just that act of creating, they're super excited about trying. And the other thing I always tell parents is that there are so many fruits and vegetables out there, right? This rainbow, they're beautiful, and there's so many flavors and textures. Don't forget about things like guacamole. Guacamole made with avocado. It's a fruit technically, but so many kids now are used to eating Mexican food at different takeout type restaurants especially. So guacamole, and you're dipping, even if it's a baked chip, you're getting produce that way. Or beans. I always say, beans, canned beans, so convenient, right? Black beans, pinto beans, chickpeas. Beans are a vegetable. So you can create quesadillas with black beans and cheese and salsa. So gooey and yummy. You can create a bean dip. You can buy a ready-made, like I know Bush's does like this ready-made refried beans that you can buy and take to the playground or to baseball practice. So don't turn down beans, because that counts as a vegetable. And then the other thing I love to do with kids and that I recommend to parents is to create these kind of build your own nights around mealtime. So you might have build your own Buddha bowls, which are these kind of nourish bowls or power bowls, or you could do build your own pizzas. You could do build your own taco night, so that, again, back to the art project idea, that hands-on idea. You lay out bowls with all these different foods, especially lots of produce, and then the kids create their own. And so it's interactive, it's fun, and mom isn't yelling at the kid, you got to eat your broccoli. It's there, right? So if big brother, your older son grabs broccoli, maybe little brother will grab it too. Or, hey, maybe your husband will grab some broccoli, and then the kids will definitely be grabbing the broccoli. So it's this idea of being interactive, hands-on, and fun. And then mealtime becomes this celebration, instead of this battlefield, because that's really what we want to avoid.
Yeah, no, that's true. So what's the starting point? I mean, I know there's people listening right now who are just nodding their head thinking, wow, this is my life, and they probably are assured in your sentiments and commentary on how mainstream and normal the concept of picky eating is, but nonetheless, it's pesky for those of us that aren't picky eaters to live with picky eaters. And so what's the starting point?
So back in the day, I wrote a book called No Wine with Dinner, WHINE. And we had asked, again, back to this community concept, we asked moms in the community, the online community, to not just test our recipes with their kids, but to give us their best tip for getting picky eaters to try new foods. And we offered 50 of them in the book, because the message here is that no one tip works for everyone. There are so many different strategies to getting kids excited to try new foods, especially vegetables, that what works for Mary may not work for Bobby, but maybe it works for Susan. And so you have to kind of experiment a little bit and just keep trying. So I would say that some of the tips that I would say to start with, besides the ones that I had shared earlier, a few more tips is, and I heard this from a lot of moms when we did that initial ask for those top tips, was to market nutrition to your kids. And by that, they meant if you assign a silly name to bell peppers and you call them power peppers, go for it. If you take a Sharpie and put a smiley face on a banana peel, go for it, because your child will probably want to eat the banana. A lot of parents would say they'll pretend not to want to share with their kids. And then their kids, of course, will be like, I want it. If you're not going to share your cucumber and hummus dip with your kids, suddenly they're going to want that dip. So just try different things, experiment with different things. And if one strategy fails, move on. Don't beat a dead horse, right? Like, move on from that and try something new. It's a work in progress. I always say your kids did not learn how to ride a bicycle the first time without those training wheels, right? The first time they got on the bike. It takes time and effort. Your child didn't learn how to read and write the first moment you sat down with a book. It's a process. Potty training, we all know, it can take a long time.
Yeah.
My son Simon, he potty trained boom, in no time. But it took him a long time to learn how to read. But he ate his vegetables. You see what I'm saying? Every kid's different. So it's a process and it might take time. I know I just gave you 50 more tips, but be patient. They will progress out of it. It's a work in progress. And that's probably the last positive news I will give you, just to hang in there, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, no, I love that. And also, we've got to make sure that our listeners know where to, learn more about you and really connect with Liz's Healthy Table. So I'm going to throw the mic back to you for closing remarks. But first, I really want to express gratitude for what you've shared today, and your passion for helping people feel very normal as it relates to our quest to bring a full nutrition profile to our families, and combat the quest for healthy eating, as well as overcoming picky eaters. Those are all things that moms like me, you, and so many of our listeners are doing on a daily basis. And it's hard work. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of patience. And just in our short conversation today, you've helped me feel very normal in what I'm dealing with in my household, whether it's with my husband or my children, and even myself at times. But I want to thank you for all that you do and all that you have done at Liz's Healthy Table. You guys, this resource that Liz has put forward is amazing, and it brings forward an incredible history and dedication to nutrition and increasing the consumption of fresh produce in America. So Liz, tell us a little bit more about where folks can go to connect with you, and any closing remarks that you have for our listeners today.
Sure. Well, I'm at lizshealthytable.com, and I've just celebrated my 2-year podiversary, which is like your anniversary of my podcast.
Right.
And I think it was episode number 3. We did talk about picky eating. I'm like you, I have a lot of guests on the show.
Yeah.
But the website, I've got a bunch of books. I've written this ebook series called Color, Cook, Eat. And it's a series of coloring cookbooks, all devoted to recipes and coloring. And there's like fruits and veggies on every coloring page. Well, then there's a little seafood. You got to shake it up. You got to eat more than produce, right? So we talk about, dairy and other, seafood, other healthy foods. But the coloring book series is whimsical and playful, and it's great for parents and kids. And if you go to the cookbooks and the freebies section of my website, after you've checked out all my podcasts, hopefully, you'll see that I have some handouts on there, freebies. And these will really get you excited, Lori, because one is a farmer's market scavenger hunt, and this is a free printable. And one is a supermarket scavenger hunt, another free printable. And it's a great way for parents to get their kids cruising through the farmer's market looking for these mystery foods that are hidden in these clues, and walking through the supermarket as well, because there's so much great produce, obviously, in the supermarket, even down those middle aisles, right? That's where the canned beans are. So there's a lot of resources on the website. And I welcome everybody to, head on over and check it out. And one tip I forgot to mention that I love, and I will sort of end with this, and that is family dinner. The more you can eat together as a family, it gives you this opportunity to role model. And, again, you eat the veggies, your kids are more likely to eat those veggies. And I always love recommending serving those foods family style instead of pre-plating. So that gives your kids more control over what they're going to put on their plates. And it gives you a chance to really role model, because you're going to grab those veggies and hopefully your kids will follow suit. And of course, kids love to be hands-on, right? So you pass the bowl of salad around and everybody's helping themselves. So you see, there's just so many, the more I think about it, there's just so many different ideas and tips and ways to get, kids engaged and excited to try all these healthy foods. So just keep chipping away.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Produce Moms podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a featured guest, just send an email to lori@theproducemoms.com. We know there is a produce mom in you because there's a produce mom in all of us. Join our community on Facebook and all social platforms. Help us change the way America eats. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.